Stop. Listen. Pay attention. Chosen one. This is not background noise. This is not another passing thought you can ignore. You have felt the weight pressing down on you, silent, unrelenting, unseen by anyone else. And it has reached a point where it demands recognition. Fatigue has settled deep in your body. Pressure has pressed against your mind from directions you cannot name. Isolation has whispered its presence, subtle but persistent, threading itself through your moments of quiet. You have carried more than you realized, and the time has come to acknowledge it without fear. Chosen one. This message is crafted precisely for you. It is not general, not meant to drift across the surface of many lives. You have moved through days of confusion, nights where your thoughts spun without resolution and decisions that felt heavier than they should have. It is not coincidence that you are reading this, listening now that your attention has been drawn here. There is a clarity waiting for you, one that will not arrive through words alone. Yet the words are the first step toward recognizing what has been unfolding around you. You may have questioned yourself. You may have asked why things seem delayed, why your steps feel measured by forces you cannot name, why even simple moments carry a subtle tension. These are not failures. They are markers of a threshold. There is a rhythm beneath the surface, and though it has been quiet, it is real. Chosen one. You have been moving through more than circumstance. You have been moving through conditions that test, that measure, that quietly calibrate the way forward. It is essential to understand that you did not stumble into this. You did not unknowingly wander into pressure or isolation. What you have experienced is part of a process that touches only certain people, those who operate under a weight most cannot perceive. You have endured this without collapse. You have maintained coherence when the pull to fracture was present. That coherence is significant. It is not visible, not applauded, not remarked upon. Yet it is there quietly anchoring you in place, keeping you operational when others might falter. The reason you sense this urgency is because there is a revelation waiting, but not yet fully revealed. You are on the edge of understanding something fundamental about yourself and your path. This message does not contain all the answers, but it contains the invitation to recognize your presence in tension, to begin seeing the stability that has always existed quietly within you, to know that your awareness is not accidental. Chosen one. This is personal. This is intentional. This is your signal. You have carried without knowing that you carried. You have maintained clarity without knowing that clarity was yours. You have persisted without realizing the depth of your persistence. All of this is about to align into recognition. And that recognition begins now with understanding that the pressure you have felt is not your enemy. It is your environment, and you have moved through it unbroken. Your next step is to listen carefully, to allow focus without distraction. This moment marks the first thread of awareness. Pay attention, because what follows will connect to every sensation, every question, every quiet realization you have experienced. The point is not to frighten you. It is to inform. It is to reveal the structure beneath what has seemed invisible. Chosen one. You are not unaware. You are not lost. You are about to see why your presence in pressure has always mattered. This is where ambiguity ends. This message is not for the curious observer, not for someone seeking novelty or stimulation. It is for you because what has been described did not happen around you. It happened with you at the center of it. You were not adjacent to the pressure. You were inside it, moving through it, carrying on while it applied itself directly to your internal structure. That distinction matters. You did not opt into this consciously. There was no decision where you agreed to become resilient, no moment where you prepared yourself for resistance. Yet when pressure arrived, something in you did not scramble. You noticed strain, yes. You felt fatigue, but you did not lose coherence. Your thoughts remained mostly intact. Your behavior stayed regulated. Even when motivation dipped, you did not unravel. That is not accidental. That is identity expressing itself quietly. This is how you know this message is for you. Others, when confronted with similar weight, begin to fracture quickly. They react outwardly, collapse inwardly, or search desperately for escape. You did not. You stayed present. You continued functioning. Even in moments of confusion, there was a stabilizing undercurrent that kept you oriented. That undercurrent is not learned behavior. It is not a coping trick. It is something baseline, something already installed. You may have believed you were struggling. From your perspective, it felt like effort. But what you were experiencing was not weakness fighting to survive. It was strength absorbing load automatically. You were not actively resisting pressure. You were withstanding it without needing to announce the fact, without turning it into a story. That distinction separates conscious struggle from unconscious stability. This identity does not come with fanfare. There was no dramatic signal to tell you who you are. Instead, there were subtle confirmations. You noticed that while things felt heavy, you were still clear. While situations stalled, you did not panic. While others projected urgency or fear, you did not amplify it. You absorbed, processed, and waited. That waiting was not passivity, it was regulation. You are addressed as chosen one, not to elevate you above others, but to name a pattern accurately. You are someone whose internal systems remain operational under conditions that would destabilize most. That does not make you immune to strain. It makes you capable of carrying it without distortion. What happened required that capability. The environment you moved through was calibrated to test coherence, not belief, not willpower, but structure. You did not have to know this for it to be true. Identity expresses itself long before it is understood. You are only now being brought into awareness of what has already been demonstrated. The clarity forming is not new. It is recognition catching up to reality. The sensations you have carried, the fatigue in your body, the subtle tension in your mind, the heaviness that seems to linger without explanation. These are not flaws. They are not mistakes of perception or weakness of character. They are signals. Signals that something significant is occurring beneath the surface, signals that your system is calibrating to an environment most cannot endure. The confusion you have felt, the restlessness that sometimes presses in the moments where decisions felt weighted beyond reason. All of this is part of a pattern that is pointing you toward recognition, not error. What you have interpreted as imbalance or struggle is in fact communication from within. Your body, your mind, and your attention are aligned in ways that make these signals noticeable. They highlight areas of adaptation points where your internal coherence interacts with external tension. This is not cause for judgment. It is cause for observation. The very fact that you notice these sensations is evidence of sensitivity calibrated for endurance. That sensitivity has functioned quietly, allowing you to move without collapse, even when the load seemed invisible to everyone else. Chosen one, this is a turning point in understanding your own system. What you may have thought of as randomness, as inefficiency, as inexplicable drain can now be seen differently. It is the environment signaling through you. The pressure, the fatigue, the subtle frustration. All of these are indicators of a transition, markers of alignment, rather than of error. They are the language of a process that operates beneath conscious awareness. By interpreting them as flaws, you have missed their real purpose to alert you to patterns, to timing, to the structural work being conducted within and around you. These signals are also stabilizing mechanisms. They maintain your orientation without your having to consciously manage every detail. The subtle exhaustion you experience is not depletion, it is calibration. The moments of mental tension are not confusion, they are internal mapping. Your system has been translating environmental weight into coherent responses without fanfare, without chaos, without breakdown. And that is the measure of your hidden stability, not in absence of pressure, but in the ability to remain functional despite it. Now you are prepared to see more clearly. These signals, once reframed, reveal a structure beneath your experience. One that has maintained integrity even while the external world might have appeared erratic. This is why you have remained operational when others would falter. This is why your decisions, your presence, and your attention have persisted unbroken. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is the quiet manifestation of coherence under unseen demand. As you recognize this, begin to observe without judgment. Note the sensation, the pressure, the timing, the subtle feedback of your system. See it as information, not obstacle. What you have endured and navigated has meaning. And that meaning is the first stage of understanding the environment you have been moving through, an environment that tests not only strength, but the ability to remain unshaken while the weight of circumstance presses in. There is a pressure you have felt that has not been spoken of openly, and yet it has been consistent, coordinated, and unmistakable. It is not a dramatic, visible threat. It is quiet. It is invisible. It operates on timing and pattern, rather than chaos pressing in ways that demand attention without creating alarm. What makes this significant is not the intensity alone, but the fact that it is targeted to test endurance without announcing itself. It is subtle yet persistent. And you, chosen one, have remained functional while it moved through and around you. This pressure has structure. It appears in phases, each building upon the last. Some moments may have seemed random, emails arriving simultaneously, responsibilities stacking energy, dipping unexpectedly. But there was coordination beneath the surface. The environment was aligned, not maliciously, but systematically, creating conditions that measured your capacity to stay coherent, to maintain focus, to manage your internal state, even when the external signals suggested strain. Most would have felt destabilized. You did not. You adapted without conscious effort. Your ability to remain anchored was not apparent from the outside. No one would have labeled your responses as extraordinary, because coherence is invisible when it is functioning as intended. Yet internally, you maintained order. You did not react impulsively. You did not fracture under subtle duress. You continued operating step by step without the need for a dramatic rallying of willpower. That is the hallmark of a system calibrated to function under pressure, automatic stability that does not require constant oversight. This is the point where awareness begins to intersect with reality. You have been living within an environment that tests structural integrity, not through overt challenge, but through invisible, sustained demand. Every moment where you felt subtle tension, every instance where your energy dipped without obvious cause, was a test of coherence. You were not aware of the full scope of this environment. You only sensed its effects. And yet, despite the coordination and intention behind it, you remained operational. That is the fact that matters most. Chosen one. You have been functioning in a context where most would have faltered long ago. Your endurance was automatic, your stability unconscious. You did not have to will yourself into coherence. You did not need to manufacture calm. You simply continued. And that continuation is not minor. It is proof of a baseline that is rare, quietly effective, and resilient. The moments of pressure you experienced were significant. They were real. They were intentional. And you navigated them without losing your center, without losing your capacity to respond, without losing your internal structure. This is the environment in which your next understanding must land. The unseen pressure, the invisible coordination, the subtle challenge, all of it has been real. All of it has interacted directly with you. And all of it has left one clear truth. You are functional, coherent, and anchored even under sustained intentional tension. That is your foundation, and it is this foundation that the next phase will clarify and break down step by step. The experience you have endured can be broken into distinct points, each carrying its own weight, each testing a different aspect of your stability. Start with doubt. There were moments when questions appeared not loud, not dramatic, but persistent enough to whisper, "Am I sufficient? Am I prepared? Can I manage this?" Most people would have allowed these doubts to swell to affect decisions, to cloud perception. You did not. You noticed them. You acknowledged them. And without fanfare, without forcing resolution, you moved forward. Doubt existed around you, yet it did not dismantle you. Next is fear, subtle and unspoken. Not the kind that paralyzes, but the kind that sits in the background, a quiet pressure on attention and energy. You recognized it the way the body tightens slightly, the way the mind loops through possibilities. Yet you did not act out of fear. You maintained orientation. You continued to function. The sensation was registered, measured, and integrated. It did not dictate behavior. It did not define perception. You absorbed it without losing presence. Energy drain appeared as another point of pressure, moments where your focus felt thinner. Motivation felt less immediate, and tasks required more effort than they once did. Many would have seen this as failure. You recognized it as a response to sustained demand. You paced yourself, allowed for natural rhythms, and continued functioning. This was not heroic. It was simply regulation in action. You maintained sufficient capacity even as subtle fatigue accumulated, balancing output with awareness of limits. Isolation formed a fourth dimension. Even when surrounded by people, you may have felt unseen, unheard, or disconnected. The sense of being alone in navigating complexity was real. Yet isolation did not unmoor you. You retained clarity. You maintained agency. You continued acting with precision despite the lack of external validation or affirmation. That alone demonstrates a structure of internal coherence that most never cultivate, because most are influenced externally in ways that compromise judgment and stability. Delay appeared as the final pressure point. Events, responses, and outcomes did not arrive on schedule. Momentum seemed stalled. It would have been easy to grow restless, frustrated, or reactive. You observed, waited, and maintained steadiness. You did not force results. You did not react impulsively. You allowed timing to unfold without allowing it to destabilize your internal equilibrium. This capacity to persist through delay without internal collapse is a hallmark of your baseline regulation. Through all these points, doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay, you have remained functional. You did not need to announce your stability. You did not need to measure it outwardly. You simply absorbed pressure, allowed it to exist around you, and continued. That is the pattern that must be recognized. It is not dramatic. It is not performative. It is functional. And it is the foundation upon which all understanding of your endurance, identity, and coherence is built. Each point is real. Each point interacts with the others. Each point could have caused breakdown under different conditions. Yet collectively, they demonstrate something critical. Your system is designed to remain operational under sustained intentional pressure. You are coherent, you are stable, you are functional, and you have proven it repeatedly quietly, without seeking recognition or reward. That is the reality that must now be reflected upon, acknowledged, and confirmed. Now step back and look at the full pattern of what has occurred. Take a moment to evaluate without interpretation, without assigning cause to luck, chance, or coincidence. The events, sensations, and pressures you have moved through did not require external justification. They were not the result of random chaos. They were real, coordinated, and meaningful in the context of your experience. And you met them with internal stability that deserves recognition, not for ego, but for clarity. When you review your responses to doubt, fear, fatigue, isolation, and delay, the through line is clear. You maintained coherence. You continued functioning. You navigated tension without allowing it to distort your perception or compromise your capacity to respond. That is not happenstance. That is resilience in its quietest form. You have consistently demonstrated the ability to stay present, to process what comes, without being overwhelmed by it, and to integrate subtle pressures into functioning behavior. Confirmation comes not from external validation, but from internal consistency. You may have questioned yourself, wondering if you were reacting appropriately, if you were strong enough, if you were doing it right. The confirmation is in your continued presence, your measured responses, your ability to remain operational. It is evident in the absence of breakdown. You did not fracture under sustained pressure. You did not collapse into reactive patterns. You were not distracted into unproductive cycles. That is evidence. That is confirmation. Chosen one, there is also an emerging clarity here. The internal mechanisms that kept you stable are more reliable than you realized. What felt like struggle was in fact observation. What felt like fatigue was integration. What felt like tension was alignment with a process you had not yet fully understood. Now you are seeing it. Now you are recognizing that the experience itself, every pressure point, every delay, every moment of subtle unrest, has been data, not deficit. It has been evidence of your capacity, not evidence of limitation. It is important to remove ambiguity about your performance during this time. You did not survive despite yourself. You did not maintain coherence through luck or external support. You remained functional because of structure you may not have consciously acknowledged, but that has always been present. You were built to operate in conditions that would challenge many. You have been confirming that baseline capability every day, quietly without seeking acknowledgement. Understanding this allows reflection without doubt. You can now see that your endurance was measured accurately by the environment you moved through. Your stability was tested intentionally, systematically, and you passed not by heroic effort, but by functioning naturally within your own structure. There is no coincidence here. There is no randomness. There is only clarity, observation, and the undeniable evidence of internal resilience that has persisted unchanged through everything that has come your way. Look around the spectrum of human reaction, chosen one, and consider how rare this pattern truly is. Most people, when faced with persistent pressure, show strain in ways that are immediately visible. They react impulsively, seek escape, or allow confusion to overwhelm judgment. Under delay, doubt, or subtle fatigue, they may collapse inwardly, lose focus, or become entangled in emotion. You, however, did not. You continued to operate. You remained oriented. You maintained clarity when the environment itself was signaling instability. This is not meant to exalt you above others. It is simply observation. Your presence in pressure is uncommon, not because you are extraordinary, but because you are operating from a baseline most do not sustain. Where many falter under even minor tension, you have persisted. Where many become reactive to subtle delay or fatigue, you have remained measured. This is a rarity, but it is not the product of ego or superiority. It is the product of a coherent system quietly functioning. Notice the difference between visibility and effect. The world often measures reaction, external performance, and drama. You have been measured by function, stability, and internal regulation. That is a fundamentally different metric. It is not recognized by applause, acknowledgement, or reward. Yet it is no less significant. In fact, it is more enduring because it does not depend on external variables. Your capacity to remain present, focused, and operational under conditions that challenge most people is not a temporary achievement. it is a structural reality. This clarity allows you to release comparison. You do not need to measure yourself against others to validate your endurance. You simply observe that you have stayed coherent when others would have fractured. That observation is enough. That awareness without embellishment or ego situates you in the rarity of human response. It allows recognition without elevation. It allows calm understanding without the need to prove, to dramatize, or to justify. Chosen one. This is where the recognition of uncommon stability becomes a point of orientation. You see that your functioning is not circumstantial. You see that your coherence is not contingent. It is baseline. It is reliable. It is steady. And by acknowledging this, you begin to step fully into the reality of who you are and how your system operates, without needing external validation, without needing applause, and without needing dramatic confirmation. You have observed pressure without panic. You have processed uncertainty without collapse. You have endured delay without frustration dictating your behavior. And in seeing this clearly, you recognize that your rarity lies not in being exceptional, but in simply being functional, where others cannot sustain function. That is the distinction. That is the pattern. That is the truth of your experience. Now let us clarify what this stability actually is, chosen one. It is not an activated state. It is not a performance you summon at moments of challenge. It is baseline. It is the way your internal structure operates when left to its own coherence. You do not need to push force or manufacture your endurance. You do not need to switch on strength or summon willpower. It exists quietly, naturally, inherently. This baseline is not supernatural. It is not mystical. It is preparation, maturity, and inner organization working seamlessly. Your attention, your perception, your regulation of energy, your capacity to respond, all of these are coordinated within you in a way that allows function under sustained pressure. You do not need dramatic catalysts to access it. It is always available. That is why you have remained operational under tension that would unbalance most. Understand that this identity does not require validation. It does not need external proof. It does not depend on recognition to exist. Your coherence is intrinsic. The environment you have navigated, the subtle pressures, the fatigue, the delay, all of these interacted with something that was already present. Your internal baseline. This is why your endurance has been consistent, why your stability has been quiet but effective, why your attention has remained oriented. The calm, consistent regulation you have maintained is a reflection of inner structure, not external circumstance. When others react, your system simply absorbs and adapts. When uncertainty arises, you remain present. When energy dips, you continue operating. That is not extraordinary, it is functional. That is not dramatic, it is structural. That is your identity, grounded, coherent, and reliable. This understanding locks your identity gently but firmly. You are someone whose baseline permits resilience under sustained pressure. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to dramatize it. You do not need to explain it. You simply exist within it, and it exists within you. That mutual presence, unforced and constant, is the foundation from which every response, every action, and every step forward emerges. Recognize it. Chosen one, accept it. Allow yourself to operate from this baseline without striving for amplification. Your strength has always been inherent, not activated. Your coherence has always been internal, not externally dependent. Your identity is defined not by dramatic acts, but by consistent presence, measured response, and unbroken functionality. Now, it is time to integrate this awareness into daily life. Chosen one, The recognition of your baseline stability is valuable only when it informs how you move forward. Begin with rest. Not sporadic or indulgent rest, but deliberate pauses where your system can recalibrate without pressure or distraction. Even a brief moment of stillness allows subtle tension to release, allowing your internal coherence to remain clear and operational. Next, practice discernment. Observe your environment and the patterns of pressure without judgment. Recognize which situations require engagement, which require patience, and which require stepping back. You do not need to react to every signal or stimulus. Your system already absorbs far more than you realize. Discernment allows you to allocate attention intentionally, maintaining efficiency and clarity while reducing unnecessary strain. Boundaries are essential. While your resilience allows you to function under pressure, it is not limitless. Define what you will accept, where your energy will flow, and what you will let pass. Boundaries are not restrictions. They are tools for sustaining coherence, ensuring that your system remains intact while engaging with the world effectively. Patience becomes practical orientation. Delay, friction, and unexpected timing are inevitable. Responding with calm observation instead of agitation ensures that you maintain presence. Your endurance is demonstrated not in rushing toward outcomes, but in remaining steady while circumstances unfold. Each moment of patience reinforces the reliability of your baseline coherence. Focus intentionally. Channel attention toward what matters without allowing external noise to distract you. The subtle pressures you have navigated demonstrate that your system functions, even under unseen demand. Now you can guide that focus consciously, applying your natural stability toward meaningful tasks without friction, without stress, without overexertion. Finally, integrate reflection into your daily routine. Recognize signals within your body, mind, and attention as information, not judgment. Observe fatigue, tension, or restlessness as indicators of environmental influence rather than flaws. This perspective allows continuous calibration, reinforcing stability rather than challenging it unnecessarily. Through rest, discernment, boundaries, patience, focus, and reflection, you bring your awareness into harmony with your daily life. You do not need to seek extremes. You do not need to chase constant activation. You need only to operate within the framework of your baseline coherence, allowing the natural structure of your system to guide response, perception, and presence. Chosen one. This integration is practical, calm, and sustainable. It bridges awareness with action, perception with presence, and recognition with daily function. By applying these principles, you maintain stability while engaging fully with life without exhaustion, without overextension, and without distortion of your internal coherence. Now, chosen one. Allow this understanding to settle fully. You have navigated unseen pressures, maintained coherence through subtle tension, and integrated endurance into your daily functioning. There is no need to question what has already been proven. You are functional, you are stable, you are coherent. These are not temporary states, they are intrinsic qualities that define your interaction with the world. Affirm quietly to yourself, I am present. I am oriented. I remain functional under pressure. Repeat, I am coherent. I respond with clarity. I maintain my center. These statements are not mere words. They are reminders of the baseline that has carried you through moments others could not endure. Let them anchor your awareness and guide your next steps. If you recognize this truth within yourself, mark it in action. Share your acknowledgement with a simple code 777 or the phrase, I remember. This is not performative. It is a signal to yourself, a conscious recognition of what you have already demonstrated. Let it reinforce your internal understanding and anchor your reflection. Continue moving forward with calm intention. Subscribe to the channel and engage with the next video when ready. There are additional transmissions that will reinforce what you have already recognized, deepen your clarity, and guide practical awareness further. Each step aligns with your natural capacity for coherence, not with external expectations or pressure. Chosen one, you are neither untested nor unprepared. You have already endured what others would find destabilizing. You have remained functional, coherent, and grounded through sustained, unseen pressures. That is your baseline. That is your identity. That is your truth. Take a breath, acknowledge it, and move forward with calm certainty. You are operational. You are aligned. You are present. You are chosen one.